Welcome to worship with the Salvation Army in Sittingbourne. It's good to greet you here today. My name is Simon and I lead the Salvation Army Church here in this town. It's good to greet you if you've been with us some time or if you're connecting for the first time. It's fantastic that you're here. Today we're going to be looking at some questions that maybe we're asking during this time of pandemic, and to do that we're going to use a story which we find in the Bible. Of course, the stories in the Bible are true stories. They actually happened. There is historical evidence that they actually happened. When we hear about the disciples are traveling with Jesus in a boat from one side of the Sea of Galilee to the other, and a storm happens and they are fearful for their lives. But Jesus is asleep in the back of the boat. And each of them have questions of one another. And I believe they can help us in these times of pandemic. But first, let's listen to a song of worship. And then we'll have our Bible reading, after which I will talk about questions.
All the earth rejoice. On that day, as evening drew on, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us cross to the other side." Leaving the crowd, they took Jesus with them in the boat just as he was, and other boats were with him. A violent squall came up, and waves were breaking over the boat, so that it was already filling up. Jesus was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. They woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Quiet, be still." The wind ceased, and there was great calm. Then he asked them, "Why are you terrified? Do you not yet have faith?" They were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this whom even wind and sea obey?" The gospel.
We all have questions during this time of pandemic. Questions like, when is this all going to end? Am I going to get sick? Are my loved ones going to get sick? Where is God in this? And there's some questions in our story today. And in our story, there's a storm that comes out of absolutely nowhere, sudden. It's a bit like the storm when we find ourselves in this pandemic. It came from nowhere, but it doesn't seem to be going away. And questions come. And in our story, there's questions from the disciples. Lord, don't you care? And after the storm is calmed by a simple word of command, Jesus turns to his disciples and asks them a question. Why are you so afraid? And having seen his awesome power, they ask a final question. Who is this? The situation is very serious indeed. The waves are swamping the boat and it's filling up with water and they're panicking. Even experienced fishermen amongst them are panicking. Everyone's panicking except for Jesus. Jesus is asleep in the back of the boat with his head on a pillow. And there's great contrast between Jesus and the disciples. There's calmness of Jesus and panic of the disciples. And maybe in this virus we're crying out, where is God in this? Doesn't he even care? Well, the Bible tells us wonderfully, not only does he care, but he comes alongside us, just as Jesus came alongside those disciples in the boat, facing the same situations as we do. The Bible says he loves you and he cares for you. And so we come to our next question, which this time is from Jesus. And he says, why are you so afraid? Jesus gives a simple word of command and the storm immediately and completely dissipates. There's no abracadabra, there's no calling on a higher power. He just says a word and it happens. And he says, why are you so afraid? And humanly speaking, we have every right to be afraid. The boat's filling up with water and they're about to drown. And if we're honest, we're a little bit afraid of this pandemic too. And of course, we should be fearful of it. But we shouldn't allow our fears to be greater than our faith in God, who is able to bring us through. After all, think about it. The disciples, they're in this boat, but they'd seen him perform many miracles. They'd seen him heal people. They'd seen him feed 5,000 people with a small boy's sandwich box. They should have trusted him. That he said they would go over to the other side, and if Jesus said it, then they'll get to the other side, no matter what storms they'll face. They should have trusted him. And we can trust him now. So here's the question. Where's your faith right now? In the raging storm of this virus, where more and more people are getting infected again, and what about your fears and anxieties about what might happen in the future? Don't you care, Jesus? Well, I want to tell you today, of course he cares. And you can trust him. You can trust him fully. And so we come to our final question. Who is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him. King Canute, he's famously remembered for foolishly thinking he could control the waves. He could turn the tide back. But the true story of Canute is that he couldn't control the waves. You see, what was happening all around him, people were saying how wonderful, how great, how powerful he is. And he wanted to prove them wrong, so he went to the water's edge and he proved he couldn't control the waves. And he said, look, I'm just a man. Only God can control the waves. Jesus stilled the waves. He controlled the waves. And from that, we're meant to draw a conclusion. Jesus is the living God, the creator of the universe. He's not only the Lord of the storm, but he's the Lord of the entire universe. Maybe you're not sure about Christianity, but you have this sense within you need an anchor, something you can be sure of against amongst the stormy seas around you. Well, let me tell you, you can find an anchor in Jesus. He is who he says he is. He's the God of the authority of all the universe, and he does love you, and he does care for you. In the person of Jesus Christ, didn't self-isolate, but he came alongside his disciples, and he comes alongside you and me now in this storm, and we can fully trust him, not only now, but for the rest of our lives too. I hope you believe that. May God bless you. And don't forget to wash your hands. And when you wash your hands, don't forget whose hand you're in.
In my wrestling and in my doubts, in my failures, you won't walk out. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Whoa, you are the peace in my troubled sea. In the silence, you won't let go. In the questions, your truth will hold. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Whoa, you are the peace in my troubled sea. My lighthouse, shining in the darkness, I will follow you. Oh, my lighthouse, I will trust the promise. You will carry me safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to shore. I won't fear what tomorrow brings. With each morning I'll rise and sing. My God's love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Whoa, you are the peace